All right off the top, I'm going to put Cody on the spot. List the Texans' three biggest needs, like on paper needs. If you were filling out the Texans' biggest immediate needs, what would they be heading into free agency, the draft, etc.?
Wide receiver, interior offensive lineman, and running back 2.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I posed the question earlier today on Twitter at Landry Locker, and that was kind of what you got. You got a little bit of safety in there, but interior O-line, wide receiver, D-line also has been mentioned. But those are the things that typically come up, and typically when you head into an offseason, it's pretty easy to list those needs. But I want to talk about some potential surprises, and I actually want to give some flowers to D'Amico and Caserio. I did this earlier today on my personal channel, but I want to give these guys some flowers for the 2024 draft. Now, the 2023 draft for the Texans will perhaps go down as one of the best drafts in franchise history. There's a better chance that it doesn't, but I think their more impressive work was actually done last year with their ability to add a starting corner, a really good one, perhaps half of the best cornerback duo in the league, and a starting tackle that you feel good about, especially after we saw what we saw from Titus Howard. I think the biggest nightmare that could have happened was Titus Howard performs the way he did last year. We feel the same way we do about him, and you're heading into this offseason, our draft, in need of a right tackle. I think the fact that they proactively drafted Blake Fisher and played chess, as I like to call it, didn't just go for the immediate need, the checker move. They played chess. I think that was more impressive than what they did in 2023. That doesn't mean it's better, but it's more impressive because I think anybody with the 2nd and 12th pick in the draft equity, if they were willing, they could turn that into CJ Stroud and Will Anderson if they were willing, because you have the equity. I think what the Texans did last year is very, very crucial, and I think it actually gives you a better outlook of this draft and the situation they're in and the needs that they have heading into it, and it might allow them to play some more chess.
2023, I mean, they could have drafted damn near anything and it would have been useful. They were still a lightly talented team, lacking depth at a lot of different places. Ahead of 2024, they had sort of plugged some of those holes. They had found some veteran players that they believed in a variety of spots, and they felt pretty good at a spot or two, which kind of kept them from having to do one thing or the other in the draft and let them be a bit more fluid. Whereas in 2023, almost whatever they did was going to be useful. It felt like 2024, there's very particular positions where they could get some upgrades, they could get some solid depth, and they went out and found that. I mean, you mentioned Lassiter and Fisher, but Bullock ended up as a starter for most of the season too. So those first 3 picks, a really good job by the Texans.
Yeah, I didn't even mention Bullock, and that's another one that you feel really, really good about. So we know the needs. I want to talk about like some potential surprising picks that they could make. For the most part, I asked the people, it was wide receiver, interior line, and D tackle were brought up. But I want to touch on like some potential chess moves, and not necessarily thinking about 2025, but getting guys who can help your team, but we might not look at them as immediate needs when it comes to the draft. Potential surprises, if you will. And I want to start with edge. I know this is interesting because you have an elite edge duo, but you thought you had an elite tackle duo last year. At least they did. I don't know that we did, but they did. And they still took Blake Fisher. And in a perfect world, Blake Fisher never even steps on the field. He's your swing tackle. Titus Howard's awesome. Laramie Tunsil's awesome. That obviously wasn't the case. And we saw Blake Fisher go out there. On this team, edge guys play a lot. And we see guys, even with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, we see them contribute throughout the week. Danielle Hunter's on the final year of his contract. It was a 2-year deal that he signed. And it makes me wonder if maybe an edge guy slides to them in the 1st or 2nd round, if maybe that's kind of the surprising move that we see, because not only are you drafting the guy to maybe be Danielle Hunter's replacement, but he makes an immediate impact as well, much like we've seen guys that weren't the top two guys with D'Amico and how much he likes to rotate in bodies. So that would be my first potential chess move that we're probably not looking at edge early.
I wouldn't love this just because you've got edge solutions for 2025 on the roster. Like your top 3 edge guys are already taken care of. Now, this becomes a much more real possibility if for some reason they decided they wanted to move on from 35-year-old Danico Autry. It saves you $6 million. The dead cap doesn't crush you. And if you wanted to get a lot younger at that third edge spot, then this becomes a much more real possibility. Look, I understand preparing for life after Danielle Hunter. I understand that. The hope is that you will have somebody from a veteran standpoint or maybe a later investment standpoint just have the time to sort of play into that role. But if they got rid of Danico Autry, I'd be in on this, and I'd even be out there looking for guys. But with Danico Autry still in the fold, this feels a little bit too early and too much for me, though they love to play a tremendous amount of edge players. I mean, they carried 9 for most of the year, it felt like. So, if they need 8 guys and they've got, 5 right now, there's room to add.
Well, my pushback would be, and I'm not throwing you under the bus, I'm admitting myself, before we slept on it, we kind of were caught off guard by the Fisher decision as well. Like we were a little bit caught off guard. I actually started to love it. Like by the time I was on the air Monday, as opposed to the live stream, and I think even Friday, I love the Blake Fisher move because I started kind of seeing the chess. The edge thing, I do wonder. I think this is more opportunistic. I don't think this is something you proactively do. I think it's more like opportunistic. But I will say that the Blake Fisher thing kind of caught us off guard early on, and they were able to capitalize on that. It is SNL, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots. If you haven't subscribed, be sure to do so. We'll be at the NFL Combine in just a couple of weeks. We got some big surprises in store for you. Might hear from some people that haven't heard from in a while. Hopefully exclusively right here on SNL Locker Room, Cody Stoots, HOU football. On the super chat, Bryce.
Swarm.
Just wanted to say I really appreciate how much effort and work y'all put into the best Texans content on the internet. Questions, knowing Kaylee was a tight end coach, thoughts on drafting Warren. If Tyler Warren falls to 25, make it happen. Like, I don't think that's going to happen just based on – there's always like a recency bias when it comes to drafting. And I think that if Ashton Jinsey would have been coming into the draft, I don't know how many ever years ago, there might have been like a reluctance to draft running backs. But I think what we're seeing from running backs this year and the fact that we might see a running back in Saquon Barkley end up being the reason why a team wins the Super Bowl or the most important thing, I think Genty's pretty safe going in the top 15. I think with what we saw from Brock Bowers last year on top of what Warren is, I think that there's no way he gets to 25. I don't see the Colts letting him get to him. And I don't see it happening. If it did happen, if Warren's there at 25, he's probably your second best receiver. He's already your first best tight end. He's probably your best fullback. And he might be your best short yardage option if you don't like using CJ Stroud on QB sneak. So it's not as simple as tight end. I just personally don't see Tyler Warren falling down to the Texans.
Yeah, something he'd have to murder somebody to fall that far, and even then, I'd be like, let's wait till the trial's over. Like let's just see how that plays out. I mean, if he got to 20, if he got to 19, I'd start calling and try to go get him. But you're right. I don't think he gets out of the top 10. I don't believe that he's going to get out of the top 10. So, but I'd be all for it. And the guy that's right behind him in the tight end rankings, a guy named Colston Loveland from Michigan, I'd be intrigued and entertaining the idea if he was there at 25. It's at least a conversation that you need to have if you're the Texans and that opportunity is presented to you.
Yeah, and you don't have to threaten me with Gunnar Helm either. One of the guys at the Senior Bowl that apparently did really well for himself was Arroyo out of Miami. And then you have the Fanning kid out of Bowling Green. So
Fanning kid's tiny.
Yeah, I know.
He's tiny.
I know. You got to be a little bit willing blocker. But yeah, they're going to have three guys that you're bringing into camp. But proactively looking to improve at tight ends, nothing I'm opposed to. And if we're and let's be fair, and I'll just bring this up because you got ahead of me, Bryce, and we much appreciate you. If you're going to get ahead of yourself, I'll throw another chess move up there, and it's tight end. Because Dalton Schultz is on the final year of his deal. Like he pretty much had 2 guaranteed years, and you got to look past that. And I don't think Cade Stover, even if he does improve, I don't think he's enough to prevent you from significantly upgrading. So if you have that opportunity, I'm down with it. I don't see Warren getting to 25 though. I don't think Indianapolis lets that happen.
Just to clarify what Landry's talking about, it's easier to get rid of Dalton after this year. He still has another year. But yeah, nobody thinks he's going to play the third year.
The first 2 years, it's basically 2 franchise tags is how the contract is laid out. He has a third year on his contract. Bye-bye. It's basically a 2-year deal.
I actually wonder if, tight end would be an intriguing move. I'm more intrigued by tight end at like 31 because somebody came up to 25 and you added a pick. Like 25, I'm not totally against it. There's probably only 2 names that I'm pretty interested in from that standpoint, and that's Loveland or Tyler Warren. Warren from Penn State, Loveland from Michigan. After that, I'd probably just let the board continue to fall to me, take whatever's available there. But it's a position that you're making, like, if you're drafting a tight end in the first round, like the hope is he's here for a decade. Like, and then he calls it a career. Like,
yeah, that's anybody though. I mean, you're hoping anybody is like getting their second contract. You're hoping you're drafting someone that warrants second contract.
Yeah, but I think it's easier to project out that a tight end who's good does that. Like pass rushers have 2-3 good seasons, and then by this, third year of their second contract, you're like, nah, this guy kind of lost the step. See you later. So it just feels like tight ends have like some longevity to them when they're really, really good. And they just like Laporta is going to be in Detroit for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Like if you could get a Laporta level player, like you go get him.
The thing about it is, and I think Brevin Jordan was a good player, but I think almost like his legend's grown because of how crappy the tight end production was last year. Look, I think Brevin Jordan's fine to have in your tight end room and there's stuff you can do. But I think the fact we saw what we saw from the Texans tight end and it was so disappointing, it's almost caused people to think that like all is well when Brevin Jordan gets there. And then that's something that I think that they would probably have to.
It would be very disappointing if the current tight end room, which is Dalton Schultz, Cade Stover, and Brevin Jordan, is the tight end room week 1 in 2025. That'd be very disappointing because that would mean that they did not get anybody in there that was capable of pushing those guys, or the guys that they did bring in to push them didn't push them enough.
Yeah, it's risky at tight end. We talked about it last year, how risky it is. I laid out the guys, and more times than not, they're busts. But that should not stop you from taking a guy like a Tyler Warren who can do a hell of a lot of things. And you do have the tight end background, as Bryce mentioned. Next chess move for the Texans. And
just while we're here, like I'll put defensive end ahead of tight end, assuming they don't have Autry. If they do have Autry, then I'll put tight end ahead of defensive end while we're just kind of ranking them here.
See, the Autry thing, like I just look at him as like a hybrid. Like I don't even, it's funny because they'll line him up inside, they'll line him up outside. I just kind of look at him as a hybrid. I don't even like as far as D linemen, the only one that I consider really returning is Tim Settle. Maybe that's unfair because he's, Autry's pretty much on the inside a lot, but yeah.
Well, they're bringing back Tommy Togiai too.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay. We're just gonna dismiss a guy that made plays down the stretch. That's fine.
He was good. He was good.
I mean, that's fine. No, go ahead. Dismiss him.
No, he's fine. He's
fine. That's fine. That's fine.
No, he's all right. He's all right.
That's all right. Yeah, no, it's fine.
He can do his thing. Yeah,
it's fine. No, that's fine.
Let's do a Tommy Togiai special tomorrow. Next chess move.
There you go. Being dismissive Landry. That's all right.
Next chess move, linebacker. Now this one's interesting. We know D'Amico's terrible, a linebacker guy. Hey, I don't love it either, but I'm not a guy who played linebacker for 30 years, coached linebackers, and have a guy who was supposed to break out last year, who's in the final year of his deal, who can't stay healthy. So I'm with you. I agree. But if you get to a point where, and this can happen, if you get to like 25th and let's say that no linebacker has been selected and DeMeco Ryans is just in love with one of these linebackers, or you get to the second round and his favorite linebacker is still there, which can very well happen, I would not dismiss DeMeco Ryans trying to get as many backers as possible. I'm not saying I love it. I'm just saying, Christian Harris, do you think he's a part of the future plans? There's a chance that Christian Harris isn't even a part of this thing moving forward if he continues to do what he's done. Azeez Al-Shire, is he getting any younger? No. I like To'o. Does he have as much upside as perhaps the best linebacker would? Linebacker's an interesting position. I'm with you. But you have a coach who's really good at coaching linebackers. It's a position where it's one of the few. I think you can throw safety into it as well, where at 25, there's a chance that someone at that position hasn't even been selected sometimes. So that's the only reason that I'm saying this is a chess move. I'm not encouraging it. This isn't an encouragement. This is more of just like a keep your eyes on it type of thing.
It's a hard pass for me. I mean, I'd think about it in the second round, but at 25, I think I'd throw my hands up in disgust on draft night if they drafted a linebacker.
Well, I also think it's kind of like, and I was talking about this the other day, and we appreciate everyone for coming through. It is SNL, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. It's a dangerous way to look at things, but like I almost look at it as DeMeco can gas up any D lineman or any linebacker. So the need for like elite talent, if there's opportunity to get other elite talents, is not as significant. And I don't even know if that's like a good line of thinking, but that's just kind of how I look at it now. You know how people used to look at running backs, and it used to piss me off where, well, you can just get any running back and you can plug them in. That's almost how I look at D linemen now with DeMeco. And the other part about it is with the D linemen, you also have an elite edge duo. So you have those guys that automatically make it easier for these dudes. So that's just kind of my line of thinking, but never ignore the fact that DeMeco Ryans' background is linebacker. And once they turn on that tape of the linebackers, he probably edges a little bit closer in that seat and checks it out. And it's kind of a money spot for 25 if you fall in love with someone.
Well, you know, he had the opportunity to do it last year and draft the first linebacker off the board, and he ultimately picked Kamari Lassiter. So
yeah, he did a good job there.
Okay.
Yeah, and they needed corners, and they still need corners too. It's just more the 3 through 5 corner range. So they're not like in desperate need for a corner. So I didn't put corner here because I think it's pretty clear what type of corner you need, which kind of goes back to the flowers given for the 2024 draft. But let's just keep an eye on those backers and how much DeMeco does or doesn't like those guys.
Keep an eye on watching Cody be disgusted for the rest of the first round when they draft a linebacker at 25.
What if he's a stud? What if he just adds a whole nother element?
Well, then I'll eat I'll eat a draft printout of his scouting report.
Okay, McLean.
Yeah. But he's not he's not gonna be a stud. 25 line, no, it's not gonna happen.
Next one, and this one's kind of chess and checkers. A running back on day 2. I think they need running back depth. I agree with you. I also don't know what's going to happen to Joe Mixon from year to year. He's kind of at that point in his career where you want to find someone to kind of maybe take over for him and be the workhorse, the carry the workload. I think the day 2 running back would not surprise me. I talked to John Harris today. I was actually texting with John, and he thinks this is one of the deepest running back drafts that he's seen. And
I believe it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with John. And I don't know that makes you wait longer, but if you find someone that you really, really like and you can use multiple backs, I mean, this just makes too much sense. You cannot, especially now that you're kind of in a position now where the Texans are. You're not completely there, but like when we talk about the Ravens and we talk about the Chiefs, a lot of times they get praised because they take the best player available. Their rosters are built to where they have the luxury of doing that. Like the Texans haven't had that luxury the last few years. To a certain point, they've done that, but it's because they've needed everything. But they're getting to the point now where you can kind of do that. Like you can kind of take a running back that can make an impact now, and it's not you don't have like an overwhelming amount of holes on your roster. So the running back for me, day 2, don't threaten me with a good time. I want all the running backs. You know how I am. But that would be not just a chess move. That would be a checker move as well.
I mean, there's just so many guys, any type of running back that you would want, from a pass catcher and pass blocker to just a hard-nosed downhill runner to a little do-it-all type of guy. There's something for everybody in this draft. I really like the idea with the current draft picks that they have. If by some chance or reason they wanted to move back from 25, then I feel like I love the idea of a running back as well. Like I really like it. I love it if they were able to acquire some sort of extra day 2 pick and they use that extra day 2 pick on a running back. I'd love that.
Well, I really love the idea of moving back. Like I really love the idea of moving back in this draft. I think that's the thing that I really love is the possibility of moving back and someone else falling in love and you stockpiling day 2 guys and just skill positioning the F out, like a skill position buffet. I love the idea of stockpiling picks. Caserio has shown that he's willing to do that. 2 years ago, with the first installment of this regime, the draft, they were willing to trade picks. Last year, they were kind of willing to trade picks. Let's stockpile now. Get as many young studs as you can. I think day 2 is kind of the gold mine, specifically on offense. That's where you can really take advantage of this thing. And I'm hoping for a trade back. I'm very pro trade back in this one.
And I'm fine with just sort of a draft pick trade back too. Like I don't have to have some sort of like player coming in like they did last year. Like just go ahead and just trade back, make sure you get picks here in 2025 and go for it, because they ultimately used a piece of that trade back last year for Stefon Diggs. Don't even do that. Just go get some young guys with the picks.
Yeah, you can get multiple backs. This name got thrown out today by Matt Miller, and it got thrown out indirectly by Sean Payton, but I'm not always like high on Texas guys, although they're getting better, like more and more talented. Like I wasn't as high on Worthy as a lot of Texans fans were last year. But Jaden Blue is a guy who I think can help any NFL offense. I think he can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think he has unrealized potential untapped. Like even if you get like a workhorse, if you have extra picks and luxury picks, this is a guy you can put in the slot. This is a guy you can use as a third down back. He's a guy that you could use in the return game. Just kind of a luxury. A lot of people were kind of surprised he declared this year, but the usage is going to be lower. It seems inevitable that he's like a Sean Payton or Shanahan or McVay type of guy. Why not be a Texans guy? And I don't know if that's a third round. I don't know if it's later. We'll have to see what he runs, but that's like kind of a luxury pick if you stockpile extra picks.
Because a lot of people didn't think he was going to jump in, so he's not on a ton of rankings just yet, but that'll get updated in the coming days.
Especially if he runs at the combine. I got a feeling it might be fast.
Plus, it presents the opportunity to sing Jaden Blue was Landry's favorite back. No. Jaden Blue
let's move on.
Is perfect in a trade back.
He might be. Now, this is the final chess move.
Like a flash of lightning, he came and ran.
And this is
all the way late. To the end zone.
This is very late. Kicker. Hey. Maybe a kicker in the
stream's
round.
Over. Stream's
maybe
over.
A kicker, maybe a kicker in the 6th or 7th round. If you find a kicker that you like, we cover all bases here. Sorry that Cody Stoots likes seeing Fairbairn miss kicks. Sorry about this guy. Sorry that he likes to see missed extra points after the best drive of the season when you could tie a game on the road against the back-to-back champs. Sorry that he likes to see you lose to the old Oilers/Titans because of missed chip shots. Sorry that he likes to see kickoffs out of bounds. Sorry he is not proactively trying to eliminate someone who might have the yips. Sorry he doesn't value a very important position. We're covering all bases here. This is later in the draft. If you have extra picks, if there hasn't been a kicker selected, get the best kicker, and let's try to put some pressure on Fairbairn.
Just bring a guy in off the street. Like you can put pressure on without using a draft pick on him.
No, thank you. Someone says, let's grab Tucker. No, Tucker's been grabbed enough, allegedly. We don't need to grab Tucker. I promise you.
Oh, jeez.
The other thing is we don't need to get back in the alleged massage business. So, yeah, we'll stay away from that. No. David White on the soup. Stoots, what are your thoughts on Gray Zabel?
So Gray Zabel played at North Dakota State University, won a national championship with the Bison, and he had an awesome week at the Senior Bowl, opened a lot of people's eyes, and he's along the lines of some of those smaller school guys like Quinn Merritt's, who's out there in Denver now, Cody Mock, who played really well for the Buccaneers, that just proved that they were worth the investment. And a lot of people's eyes, Zabel's played himself into like a late first round or top of the second round situation after most people thought he was probably like a third round, fourth round guy. But he showed up and he kicked a bunch of ass at the Senior Bowl and proved that just because he played a lower level division of football, that he was ready for some of the big boys that he squared off against.
So those are the chess moves, potential chess moves, and flowers for Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans for what they did in last year's draft. Did I miss anything? Is there anything else that could perhaps be a surprise as we kind of prepare for the combine, prepare for the big game, look ahead, try to at least train our eyes to look out for these types of things?
I think you you pretty well covered the bases. I can't imagine that there's really any sort of like crazy pivot that we haven't talked about. Now, the idea that you could get the best player at a position at 25 is an intriguing one. Like from a safety perspective, maybe it's not going to be defensive tackle, or defensive end, but you get near the top of that position group at 25. Like it gives you a lot of different ways that you can go. And if there's a lot of interesting players there at 25, it makes it easy on draft night if you want to move back too. Like some teams coming up for a wide receiver that you don't really like, or some teams coming up for a defensive end because you don't need defensive ends. It's easy to move around.
Yeah, the problem, it's not necessarily a problem, but the luxury that every position except offensive line and quarterback has is if they're not starting, they can still produce on your football team. And like offensive linemen, barring injuries, they're either starting or they're not. Like you're not rotating in guards. You might bring in like a tackle eligible or an eligible tackle. No, I'm saying like you're not.
Hopefully the days of that are over.
Yeah, but like you're not necessarily like if this guy is not like a starter, like at a certain position, chances are he's still going to get some runs. So there's a lot of ways that these guys can help your football team. 25, if there is a trade back, it'll be interesting. I don't anticipate like there's not any quarterback. I think maybe Shedeur Sanders slides to 25. Like I don't the more that I'm hearing, like I don't know when he's going to go, but I think PFF had him like as their 41st prospect when I was looking yesterday. I mean, I don't know. Maybe one of these guys slides. I don't know. I don't think there's a quarterback anyone's like just going to completely trade up for.
The only quarterback that would be in a situation where if he's not off the board and somebody who didn't go QB at the top of the first round wanted to jump into the top or the back end of the first round is Jackson Dart.
Okay, Dart. Okay.
Yeah, that's the only guy to me. Like there really probably only should be 2 first-round quarterbacks, and that's Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. And then after that, if you're picking Jalen Milroe, I feel like you're wasting a draft pick. If you're picking Quinn Ewers, I feel like you're wasting a draft pick. Dart maybe has a little sit and wait to him. And then after that, good luck.
Yeah, it's a cluster. It's nice not to be in the quarterback business. It's nice not to be in the cornerback business. And it's nice not to be in the tackle business. And that's why all these possibilities are so fun, because the dire needs that you would have had it not been for the wizardry. I know we're going to criticize D'Amico. We're going to criticize Caserio. Giving him their credit, it puts you in a situation where the discussion is more fun. The opportunity is much bigger, and the debate is just that much more fun leading up to the draft. So that's kind of the beauty of this whole thing, and that's just kind of what we wanted to touch on. We'll have plenty of time to get more in depth in the draft. We'll be at the combine. We'll get more into what's going on with these prospects. Combine will give us a clear picture. Then we'll have free agency. We'll have even more clear grasp of what they need. And it's going to be a fun time. It always is a fun time. And we always very much appreciate everyone in the chat for supporting our individual channels and our individual projects, as well as the SNL collaboration, which is great. Be sure to subscribe to that. And always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.